Welcome to the Cloudstack Collaboration Conference here in Las Vegas, our fabulous Cloudstack Collaboration Conference. I count it as the 10th we've had, and we're back in Vegas, so this is cool. I am Paul Angus. I'm the current chair and VP of the project. And we've got so much content coming up for the next couple of days. All you have to do to get to that content is sit and listen to me for half an hour, three-quarters of an hour, and then you're free to really enjoy yourselves. So I'm more the warm-up act for the rest of the content you're going to see. And also, to make this more bearable for you, I've got some special guests to come and talk to you so that you don't have to spend all of the time listening. Some housekeeping from the Apache Foundation themselves. There's a plenary which has some really interesting, really great people talking tomorrow in Vista. I'm not sure which room Vista's is. One of the larger ones, I believe. I've heard from the Apache guys they've had the second largest registration for this conference as a whole of all time. So in the last 20 years, it's the second biggest they're hoping for. So it should be really good. We've got some evening events. If you look on the ApacheCon website, the first one being tonight, a screening of a film that was done about open source, free software over time and how it's developed, and also a preview of a film they're going to be making. There'll be people, we've got Andrea and people doing some filming of our CloudStack, but there'll be some general filming going on as well. And that's all going into a documentary about the Apache Foundation, particularly the last, this particular anniversary year. That is in Vista as well. Then you've got the ApacheCon runners, so a whole group of people will be at 7 a.m. Getting together in the lobby, presumably also in Lycra. And if you ask me, insane, but that's they'll be there, so you can go run around with them. And also they've asked, as well as we have our CCC 19 US kind of hashtag, and obviously at CloudStack, we do use the CloudStack Works hashtag for stuff that's cool what CloudStack's doing. Apache have asked also, can you try to include either at ApacheCon or ACNA 19, whichever your fingers get to first, because obviously they want the wider world to see that this is part of ApacheCon and what's happening. Don't drop the US on the end, because I did have a look. CCC 19 is some Italian cycling thing that happened earlier this year. So, well, I mean, you can tweet them, but they're probably less interested. Also, obviously, on the housekeeping side, coming from England, I'm going to speak English as I see it. You're lucky it's not a technical talk, so router versus router is not going to be an issue for us. But you'll have to bear in mind that if I say lift, obviously you think elevator. Obviously, complaints to the Queen. If Harry's upstairs naked playing poker or something, obviously you can drop off your complaints to him, and he'll, I assume, pass them on for you. So, why we're here. We're here in this building with ApacheCon. It's their 20th anniversary. The first collaboration conference was down the road in the Venetian 7 years ago, I think it was. Almost exactly 7 years ago, roughly around about this next month. And we've so been part of the Apache Foundation for seven years. We started off obviously as a podling, incubating, and we've come all the way through there. And that kind of the way we've done it, being part of Apache, the Apache way, is going to be a theme throughout, really, how it's helped us achieve what we have. But I'll come back to them in a bit. So the real reason you're here, we've got 22 more presentations to come after this opening one. There's stuff on how to do things, people's view of how the future might look, new features that people are working on, new features that they have developed. All interesting stuff about what's coming, what is in CloudStack, for people to just talk about, enjoy, and see where we're going. So we've got today and tomorrow. The talks, I think, get up to about 6:30, 7 o'clock most days, so we've got full days. So that's 2 tracks in here. Laughlin, 1 and 2 is just next door. I did think when you see, if you go to the schedule, if you filter for CloudStack Collaboration Conference, it's not ordered, so Laughlin one's on the right, left, and the other's on the other side. They do switch around, so just make sure you check which room it is that you want to be in. And then we, in here again, have a hackathon on Wednesday, where people just get together and talk through stuff they want to talk through, be it what's happening in the virtual router, how we might do networking in some particular way, all sorts of stuff that will come up that people want to get together with. It can be code-based, it can be physical, actually hacking code together, or it could be more generic, more how we all going to pull together to do a particular thing. That, as I say, is in here, and I think Andrea or one of our guys will also try and go around and talk to people and maybe interview and film if they're willing, and ask about how people use CloudStack, what they're doing with CloudStack, so that we've got some of that kind of content to put up as well. And then one note, Laughlin is also known as a town about 120k away, so if you're a bit tipsy out on the strip, don't tell anyone that's where you want to go, because it won't end well. Except for me, because I'll have a really funny story to tell other people. Okay, so that's all the kind of background stuff. Now, you're going to hear loads of really interesting, really informative facts, and they're actually going to be true. So I thought what I'd do is reset you so that you're in this position where, okay, now I know what not true is, and I'm hearing this stuff, so I know how much better all this true stuff that I'm going to hear is. So we'll start off with some fake news, just to get us warmed up. So, obviously, no talk about Brexit or President Trump. For the rest of the week, everyone's agreed, signed a pact. We're having none of that because, frankly, I'm sick of it. 2, we thought, we get all the kids, we want the kids using CloudStack, so we've got some emojis, so we're going to have an emoji language. We've got the VM started, cool, error, not so happy, deploy VM, well, let's hope it works. And then, obviously, our special guest we've got coming to talk. Everyone knows that's not true. Celine Dion ended her residency, I think, a few months ago. That's obvious. Although I may have oversold how well I know Cher. So, yeah, that might come back to bite me later. Cool. So, after all that, so for the record, that is the end of the fake news. Everything else is actually real, just to be clear. So let's get on and try and be a little bit more serious for a bit. Everyone likes some numbers to get them going. It wouldn't be a starting presentation without a load of numbers in them. So I had a look on GitHub, and I think the transfer to GitHub coincided roughly round about where we moved to Apache Foundation.
Can you speak out further? Because we have problems here, I'm sure, that having a lot of fun hearing it. You might have to yell it.
Okay. So yeah, I think the transfer to GitHub occurred roughly around when we moved to Apache Foundation-ish. So from there, we've got over 32,000 commits gone in. They are definitely from 297 individual committers. So, there's a big broad spectrum of people committing to this. Right now, as official Apache committers, we have 121 of them. Of those, 51 are PMC members. And so, coming down. 10th, because I think I've got those right. Those are all, I don't think they're in the right order, as I remember them. I think there's a case of, if you remember the Amsterdam one, you weren't there. We have been part of the Apache Foundation for roughly 7 years. 6 VPs we've had so far. Chip, who did obviously loads of work getting us actually into as a top level project, followed by Sebastian, Hugo, Will, Mike Tatowski, and then just little me. And of course, I was trying to think of a number that was where I was going to go. So 1 Apache CloudStack. So that was my thing. But we've also, I think we went through a phase where we had if you like, fallow years where there was still loads of development going on, but we weren't getting it out there. But in the last year, 4.11 was already out by the time I think we had the last big conference in Montreal. But from there, we've continued and updated 4.11 to give you 11.2 and 11.3 just recently. So we're keeping up with that LTS idea that people can go to a version and they're not going to have to do relatively large, not even that large, but bigger version upgrades when new features come in. They can be happy in there where they are and move forward safely. 4.12 was out 2-3 months ago, and 4.13 should be out within days and weeks. We've voted it through. It's just down to the administrative bits at the back end to get the websites updated, the announcements out, and what have you. And largely, it depends how interesting you like it are, because if you're really boring in your talks, then I'll have loads of time to get that sorted. If you're actually interesting, then it's going to take longer. And we bring this slide out, and normally there's a big map and stuff. Thousands of package downloads a month. People are downloading CloudStack from all over the world. People are trying it out, and the conversion ratio we don't get to see, unfortunately, but we'll also hear now that actually we convert more than we know, and some surprising names will come out. So, from all we do, and I'll get into why we have a lot to be proud of a bit more, we do have a lot to be proud of, and I kind of put something up there, and people who know me know I don't like hyperbole or hyperbole, depending on which side of the Atlantic you come from. I don't suffer fools gladly, so if I honestly think we should be proud of it, then probably it's quite a good line. It was hard to find Out of the Shadows picture. That didn't seem a bit just scary. It's paying dividends. What we're doing is getting to be seen more in the outside world now. Outside of our little CloudStack bubble, where we've always thought it was great, where we've always thought we were the bee's knees. It's now starting to get out to the wider world in some ways. And obviously, over the next couple of days, hearing what people are up to, hearing where people want to go with CloudStack, we'll be able to enforce within ourselves the idea that CloudStack actually is not just kind of still hanging on, but is still going forward, doing more, pushing boundaries, saying what should we do next, what should we be next, and that's going to be a big thing to take. And part of the hashtags is tweeting that out, showing the outside world that that's happening is a big thing as well. This is, it's a bit of a cheap shot, sorry. But it is a genuine quote. I'm trying to see if the guys are here. No, so I can say what I like. It is a genuine quote from a third-party vendor who actually is getting more and more involved in CloudStack. They have just, about a month or two ago, hired a developer specifically to be working on CloudStack, specifically to be making their storage work with CloudStack, to see how CloudStack does stuff and create drivers and a plugin to make that faster and better. They see that as a better way of leveraging their software, their storage software, than going via OpenStack. And no, CloudStack isn't as cool and sexy as OpenStack, but to be fair, a lot of people made a lot of money out of OpenStack. But I kind of wonder how much of that as a ratio compared to CloudStack converts down into the end users actually getting as much return on their investment as you do from CloudStack. And there's, I think, a number of reasons for that. CloudStack, it does what it says on the tin. It's maybe not as sexy as a thing to talk about. It's an IaaS platform. And it does what it says on the tin. That's what we try and do. We've actually at times had conversations, I remember on mailing lists, where we've said, yeah, but that's really not what an IaaS platform should do. That's not really our scope. Someone says, should we reinvent a Terraform inside CloudStack. Well, no, let's make CloudStack be able to work with Terraform and let those guys do what they do best, and we'll stick to doing what we do best. No, it's not as sexy, but I think over time it's paid off. I'm making no false promises. As I say, I'm fairly, I don't like hyperbole. And I actually think in some ways, although it's a bit of a tortoise and hare thing, that because there's no marketing and haven't managed to get hold and do this great big shiny poster of what CloudStack does, half of which it doesn't, it means that when someone's come to evaluate CloudStack, they've come to, you guys, they've come to the mailing lists, they've gone out and evaluated it themselves. So when they come to decide if they're going to use it, when they do use it, they actually get what they were expecting. And so while it's been a disadvantage in a lot of ways, not getting any kind of marketing going around CloudStack, it has given us a kind of, well, at least it does what it says, because you go on the mailing list, if you get Andrea answering your question, you really are going to get nothing but the cold, hard truth. The proven longevity, as I say, people are here, and you'll hear later about what's going on going forward. So it's alive and kicking in all senses of the word. And the passionate community, again, it's ApacheCon's 20th year, and I'll come back to stuff around that. Brilliant, in a minute. But as we say, I love this hashtag CloudStack works, and now we even have a certificate to prove it. This is not I won't say anyone's name. This is not a rent-a-quadrant thing where you pay someone to tell you exactly what minute thing you're better at everyone else than everyone else is. I certainly didn't know this was going on. The Apache Foundation didn't know that Newsweek were doing this poll. But we've got an award for being a best business tool. I think later I say, 10,000 professional users of stuff, of software and services, people who've said, so if you're doing a cloud thing, what should you use? What's the best tool for that? And they're also giving a load of criteria to mark and see where it ended up. And I think the willingness to recommend a brand to colleagues is obviously a huge thing, because if people, and I think it goes hand in hand with also trustworthiness. Again, if you've come to the mailing list with Wheel of a said, it will be a technical guy just telling you this is what it does. It does this really well, so at that. I wouldn't do that, but these bits, it's great. And then people go down that path and know it's going to do what they think. And really all of these, obviously if you get slides, you can read all the little words in here, but basically, Generation Z users born 1995 and later. So people who are just using this stuff, real professionals, have said, this is a thing. This CloudStack really works for us. Which again, says there must be a lot more people using CloudStack than we really realise. There has to be to make a dent in this. And so, as I said, CloudStack, the passionate community, that's us here. Obviously, we'll be putting the videos up on YouTube, so hi to the people watching on YouTube. It's you as well. It's the people on the mailing lists. It's the people running user groups. It's probably not the guy who was looking for funny pictures of cats who then found Rohit and then ended up on our on the Apache website. It's probably not him. But for everyone else, this is the community. This is the people who have come here, who couldn't make it, but will be at some other user group around the world. There are tens of user groups. A lot of countries have user groups. It's really surprising. But this CloudStack works. Obviously, I'm standing up here, and as VP, it's kind of my job to say that in some ways. But look at it the other way, I wouldn't have taken the job if I didn't think it actually did. So what done is asked some other people to come and talk to you and tell you what they're doing. And some of the names may surprise you, some may delight you. And we've got a lovely mix. We've got private cloud, we've got public cloud, and they all have their own twist on what the services are they use and what they do for people. One thing I do suggest is we'll do find them probably maybe in a bar later, ply them with alcohol, then ask them questions. But also, I should say, also be respectful of the fact that they had to get stuff through their marketing departments in the first place to even speak and be able to put stuff up here. If they are a little cagey on answering questions about how big, how much, exactly what process do you use at what clock speed, be respectful of the fact that they were limited to what they were allowed to say, and they've done us a huge favour by coming and speaking. So just, don't start a fight over why they won't tell you which generation of processor they use. So the first one, who found out I didn't really know share, wouldn't come in the end, so sent a quotation for us, which again has been passed by their marketing. For the benefit of these microphones and stuff, I will read it out. At BT, we use Apache CloudStack to underpin our cloud compute service. We have compute zones in 16 countries, which support key services for many of our global customers. CloudStack gives us a full range of functionality we require from an IaaS platform, while still being easy to deploy, scalable, flexible, and robust. We would like to thank the Apache CloudStack community for their continued development of this great technology, and we ourselves will continue to contribute. I know that some of the features that are in CloudStack come from and via BT, British Telecom. They've been kind of around the edges of the project for a long time, in fact. But it's great to see that they've kind of completely embraced the open source idea. And actually, I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. So next up is my first guest. Oh no, offside. Line of sight. Calm yourself. So, let's send me some words to explain about LeaseWeb while Jeffrey makes his way. It's a global hybrid cloud with HQ in Amsterdam, the Netherlands. Jeffrey's worked for LeaseWeb for 13 years and for 3 years as senior systems engineer on the CloudStack team. This is his first time at a CloudStack conference and his first time in Vegas, and they hope they can have him back. Although there is a note about a deployment of his code that's going on, and if it doesn't go well, maybe you shouldn't bother. He's in with Wei from Netherlands also, and his colleague Tyler, who's actually based out here. And so I'll hand over to Jeffrey.
I'm Jeffrey. Working for LeaseWeb. We're a global hybrid hosting company where we offer different services from cloud hosting to dedicated service, co-location, web hosting. We've been running CloudStack in our organization since 2012. I think we started in February 2012. And we use the product for our VPS hosting, the public clouds. And we also offer private clouds where we give customers our resource pools so that they can build their infrastructure on top of their system on top of our infrastructure. We like CloudStack really much because it's highly customizable for us. Wei is one of the PMC from CloudStack. Working for us. So we can customize a lot in CloudStack, make a lot of changes that are beneficial for us, and then also contribute this to the community. So we provide the infrastructure that for our tech-savvy customers, and they build all kinds of platforms on products on our customer platform. And we really like the Apache CloudStack community. Like Paul already mentioned, there's over 120 active committers, of which one is Wei, my colleague. And we really like the community that comes with it, where we can discuss features between us, work well together. We worked with ShapeBlue as well on some Prometheus exporters together. So yeah, we really like the community and, of course, this conference here to share our ideas. Yeah. Thank you.
Next off, we have Jean-Francois Nadeau. Is that pronounced right? The quick intro I googled from Ticketmaster's own site. 20,000 global clients, 425 million events every year sold, 500 million tickets sold annually through Ticketmaster, and 6.5 thousand worldwide employees in 29 countries. So Ticketmaster is no small thing. So please welcome to our stage Jean-Francois Nadeau.
Thank you, Paul. I'll take a little... All right, so I'm going to talk about our journey to CloudStack, how we got to adopt CloudStack, and what our starting point was. So at Ticketmaster, the on-prem cloud is basically hosting a development and production environments of all the ticketing product we develop internally. So, for instance, when you hit one of our ticketing platform, Ticketmaster.com or whatever, behind the scene, you're hitting one of many microservices which are running typically virtualized or containerized on our on-prem cloud. And that cloud goes back to about a decade. It was built around 2009 with Xen server pools. Xen server pools are orchestrated by a homegrown portal. So developers can go in that website and basically request a VM. That's what they get. And it grew to a decent size. I want to say, a decent size. In 2017, we were counting over 100 Xen server pools, around 900 Xen server hosts, for a total of 18,000 virtual machines. So something of a decent scale that when you want to bring change to is not easy necessarily. And we tried to modernize that because we realized at some point we built this thing before the OpenStack and CloudStack that we knew. So 5 years ago, we gave a try at OpenStack. So it's really the quote you said after OpenStack, you try CloudStack. Because we try to integrate OpenStack side by side with the existing cloud. And that was very difficult, and the complexity added to the environment became a real concern. So we gave up on the project. So our CloudStack journey really begins late 2017, where we couldn't push further. I mean, we had to modernize one way or another. And we couldn't just build a new data center and ask our developer to create a completely new environment of their application. So we had to provide a way for them to migrate in the least disruptive way. So what we did is we created a CloudStack extension. We created an API endpoint within CloudStack that would migrate their VM for them. So a developer would ask, move this VM, this host name. The API would look at what the VM looks like on the Xen side, create a new VM on the CloudStack side under KVM, and preserve the network identity. That was the big deal for us, is people self-serve, but your new VM is just a KVM VM with the same host name, same IP. So that's how we got to migrate over 15,000 virtual machines. Not doing it ourselves, because the cloud team at that time was only 4 people. So 4 people doing design, implementation, and support of the existing cloud and the new cloud. I mean, we couldn't migrate all those virtual machines ourselves. So that's how we managed to do it. A year later, the Xen-based platform, custom platform, is dead. And we went through, let me see if I forget something. And we also went through a major upgrade. So that was one of the things we found, that upgrading CloudStack is easier than an OpenStack-based deployment. So we were successful at performing that major upgrade. Yeah, so in general, we can say our CloudStack adoption went very well because it was simple enough to understand. Like the HA model of the control plane is nothing mysterious. And it was extensible enough that we could create our own API endpoints to do fancy stuff like custom migration. So the migrations are over. I mean, that code is not going to be used anymore, but we wouldn't have been successful without an easy button for them to use. And now for us, it's time for expansion. We're building new CloudStack environments, and where am I? Oh yeah, so we take the opportunity to make some changes. For instance, storage. We started the adoption of managed storage. If you haven't looked at that, I mean, that's a very interesting feature that I think deserves more attention. If you haven't touched managed storage, if you're familiar with VMware, well, managed storage is a bit like vVols. So if you are in a need like us to have good I/O isolation between your VMs, then managed storage is probably something worth a look at. Other change we're onboarding workloads that we would not have earlier, and I think it's Kubernetes, because we've run Kubernetes for 2 years on bare metal, and we learned from that virtualization still have its place. It's not an all or nothing thing, that virtualization and containers works together, simply because people size their containers just like they size VM, way too large. And also our Kubernetes group, they need way more environments than we can give them servers. So for us now, it makes a lot of sense to onboard Kubernetes on CloudStack as a first-class citizen. We're also writing some core components with the help of our friends from CloudOps. And we plan to contribute them back. I think they're generic enough that they can be used outside of Ticketmaster, the Ticketmaster context. We're writing basically network service provider for external DHCP and DNS. So we have to use such thing at Ticketmaster. The point is you don't need to have a VR if you have this kind of integration. It doesn't replace like the whole software-defined networking. It's just the security context we operate is such that we need physical networks. So actually that is already in use. So we plan to contribute it back. The other thing we're working on right now is an alternate way to do user data. So if you don't have a VR and you want to do user data, today you basically have the config drive options. I don't think there's another way right now. So we're working on a way to do that through the network using Open vSwitch. So that would basically be an alternative to user data through config drive. That would be what we call the OVS user data proxy. That's about it for me. Yep. Thank you.
Cool. I have one last guest. His name and company may be a surprise to you. I'm not getting too excited about the company. It's also great to recognise that Anthony is a great guy in his own right. Actually hails from Northampton, which is only 20 miles away from my hometown. Just saying, there's obviously a something special about that area, the people it produces. Actually, we were chatting last night, and I think our Christmases will probably be spent about 25 miles from each other, even though he currently lives, I do assume you live around Cupertino somewhere. So please, I should say, hey Siri, please can you welcome to the stage Mr. Anthony Shortland.
Good morning, everyone. I promise not to do a song and dance, but if you ask me or remind me when I finish talking, I might tell a joke. Okay. Well, yes, I work at Apple, and if you think about the most recent quarterly revenues in Apple and look at service revenue, it's approaching something like $12 billion a quarter. And if you work that out against Fortune 500, that makes Apple Services Division, Apple Services Group, basically about number 35 in Fortune 500, so approximately just behind Cisco, just in itself. So, of course, the vast majority of that revenue is generated by internet services. And I have to tell you that, of course, you're all crystal clear aware that that takes a large set of data center infrastructure and cloud enablement. Well, of course, right in the middle of that is a very large CloudStack cloud. A platform that we've been running for more than 6 years. So when I say 6 years, I think it was 2013 we got into production. And so we were doing the engineering work and putting together development, non-production environments in the year or two before that. So we've been in the CloudStack game for a very long time now. What do we do? Well, I manage a cloud engineering team that basically engineers Apple's virtual machine service. And that's grown over the years. There's plenty of things you use on your phone and stuff you run into when you go into the Apple retail stores that run on our cloud. Lots of mission critical internal and external applications of one sort or the other. Anytime a back-end application team wants virtual infrastructure, they come through our CloudStack cloud. Along the way, obviously it's Apple, so we've been a little bit low profile, but we have been part of the community. There's another couple of individuals in my engineering team that have struggled, you have to say, to contribute directly, but we have to directly contributed patches and some feature enhancements over the last few years. But we do have a good strategic partnership with ShapeBlue, and through that arrangement, we've managed to drive a lot of feature and function into the project. And Marcus Sorensen's here. He's basically our lead cloud engineer on the CloudStack side. We'll be doing a couple of technical presentations today and tomorrow, so you should go look him up, talk it through, see what we're up to. And I think you'll see there's a lot of exciting stuff going on. So I'd like to wind up and thank the Apache Foundation Committee for organizing the whole conference. It looks like it's going to be a load of fun over the next few days. And also thank Paul over here and his mates for setting up the CloudStack Collaboration Conference. It's an exciting bunch of presentations. I'm looking forward to seeing the whole thing. So thank you very much. Oh yeah, and if you want a joke, here's the joke. So last night, we were in the Center Cut Steak restaurant just around the corner there. It's really good, by the way. You should go get a steak. And the waiter comes up and says, you know what? We've got buffalo T-bone steak on special on the menu. So Marcus, of course, he pops up and says, well, what's that then? What's the difference between a buffalo and a bison? And I say, well, it's pretty bloody obvious. You get a hot and a cold faucet with a bison. Thank you very much.
I thought it was funny. Yeah, someone would think it's funny.
Am I right in thinking they're actually just two names for the same thing?
I have no bloody idea.
A water buffalo and a bison, it just depends whether you're European or American as to what you call them. Same thing. That actually isn't funny. But it is real news. How cool was that? One thing to take, though, and Anthony said, they're hiring, they're looking for experienced guys to go in there. I saw a guy from CloudOps over there somewhere. Yeah, so new people facing that. I saw, I mentioned Storple, new people. I know E&A had someone pop up on the main list a month or so ago saying, hey, hi, I'm new, I'm joining. For 5 seconds, I put my ShapeBlue hat on and say, I know we're hiring. We look for Java developers who live anywhere in the world who want to work on CloudStack. Well, CloudStack is growing. It isn't shrinking. It isn't even standing still. We're all trying, moving forward, fighting over developers. That's the place we're in at the moment, trying to move CloudStack forward and find enough people to do great things we want CloudStack to do. So I will finish up, hopefully not too long, with a little about the Apache way, because that's kind of why we're in this particular building with the Apache Foundation. There's a lot, actually, the Apache Foundation within itself is kind of looking inward and saying, what does the Apache way actually mean? And also, how do we educate people what that means, especially given they can't quite decide what that means themselves, because 20 years ago, someone wrote some stuff down, and now 20 years later, it's kind of a whole new, the board there is fairly unrecognizable from what started, so everyone has a new idea of what it means. But the main bit is providing software for the public good. But there's a lot about the Apache way. That's what Apache's trying to do. What's the way it's trying to do it? And I would kind of shorten it and say basically the Apache way is try be excellent to each other. And that's kind of how I loosely interpret it. A lot of people have their own commercial reasons for supporting CloudStack. There's something they're trying to do with CloudStack, but that doesn't make it a zero-sum game. I've got LeaseWeb here. We had a quote from British Telecom, BT. They're trying to do different things, and it's easy for one to put in a feature, and as long as it doesn't try and harm the other company using it, everyone wins. CloudStack has a new feature in it. LeaseWeb may use something BT put in. BT may use something LeaseWeb put in. But they're trying to do different things. It's not a zero-sum game. And that's really the kind of idea that I'd like to get across about how working in a community really is trying to work. They've got on the Apache website some explanations of some of the terms they use. Not rivalrous. I expect everyone is doing the same as me and going, well, that just must mean not trying to slag off OpenStack, for instance. Actually doesn't, and I did have to look it up because that's what I assume. But actually means just because you've got a pool of CloudStack, it doesn't matter how much BT or LeaseWeb use it, it won't diminish what's available to the other. So it's actually internally how just you consuming it by what one user doesn't stop another one. It's your IO separation, if you like. But otherwise, it's just all about kind of working nicely with people, and then it not being a zero-sum game is ultimately what a lot of this boils down to. And then there's some protections for people actually contributing that, well, you're not tied that if you write some code, you are absolutely legally bound to maintain it for the rest of your life. You can contribute and walk away and let someone else look after it if that's what you want to do. And again, well, just because it's an open source license isn't good enough for the Apache Foundation. You have to be doing things the right way, if you like. CloudStack isn't in itself curing cancer. It's not helping old ladies across the road. It's not doing necessarily directly good work for people. But you do have to remember that the University of Sao Paulo, all their stuff runs on CloudStack. That's how all their students get their services. I think it's the Fraunhofer Society in Germany. That's, again, a research institute. They have researchers doing all sorts of things for good of mankind. ENA and Oakford, yes, they're organisations, they're corporate organisations, but they're supporting schools. They're helping schools deliver more for children. You quite easily get into, well, these people are still doing good things. The public providers, charities run on public providers and probably get a cheaper rate from those public providers, all running on CloudStack. And you have to remember, even the corporate organisations, for the public good, I'm sure people's Apple phones make a lot of people very happy. And it helps. And also, from the direct, if we make doing something in CloudStack easier, it's making the lives of the people who are having to operate CloudStack easier. Even if you do something simple as rearrange the UI so it's quicker to get from A to B, somewhere, when it comes through, some guy's going to go, oh, thank God they did that because it was driving me mad. Their life has been made just a little bit better. And if you can keep putting smiles on people's faces, then, you're doing an okay job. You're doing something. To brass tacks, what does it actually really mean? So our Apache way is everyone is equal. You all have an equal voice. Everyone can have an opinion and voice it. Our open communications, you've got the mailing lists. Everyone can see what's been said and what is being said, and you can follow those threads. And it's clear what's going on, what conversations people are having. And the consensus, we vote, we all make sure, people are on board with things. You put it out there. I've got this idea. What do you think? And the community over code. I think that the basic idea is, as someone explained to me, is you can have a buggy release. Everyone can have a buggy release. So the code could be poor, if you like that definition. But if you have a healthy community, if people then go, we've got something to do here, and they all pitch in and fix it, then you're back on track. If even the best the best software in the world has some bugs in it, but the community goes, someone else will deal with that, it won't get better, and it will deteriorate. It will become a vicious cycle. So that's how I see that community over code. It's about everyone pitching in to ping someone and say, hey guys, can you check this out for me? Can someone review my pull request? There's so many helping out on that, commenting on pull requests, having a look, going, I like this, but that. If it makes it something better, then, and it's constructive, then it helps. It makes things better. But we have to still work on it. We have to still try and get better. We still have to nudge people. We want to see we've got new people coming in on CloudStack. We want to see them in the mailing lists. We want to see them contributing and engaging in conversations. I think some people go, I'm maybe new and don't know so much. I come from this background, not that background. I mean, hey, if you come from a background of, something, and then there's a problem that we're trying to work out in CloudStack, the way you did it in your previous background might be the way we need to do it now. And so you can shout out and say, well, indirectly, we solved the problem of distributed somethings by doing it this way. And maybe that won't be the way we go. Maybe it'll just put a light bulb above someone's head of some idea. But just contribute, be involved, and that's what keeps the community spirit and the community going and being vibrant. We've got this far by being community, and we need to make sure that people coming in feel that sense of community and feel like they can contribute and they're welcome. New people coming on mailing lists, be friendly, be engaged, answer questions. Who knows what that might lead to in the future. So we are nearly at the end of me talking at you. You'll be pleased to know. So the reminders are to enjoy yourselves. The schedule is online, so you can check out who's where. We have the hackathon on Wednesday, which probably be slightly freeform to start off with, and then we'll try and work out who wants to talk about what. ApacheCon in general is running Monday to Thursday, so you may want to pop into some of the stuff that's going on in other rooms and other things. Hey, if you want to think, how would we do something in CloudStack on the HTTP side? We'll go into the HTTP talks and nab someone. If they've got a hackathon, go grab one of them, pull them into the CloudStack hackathon and get them to explain something, how we can get more data through, that kind of thing. The next thing's up at 10 o'clock. We have a modern UI for CloudStack in here. We wrote it an Anurag. And did you say Rakesh? Rakesh? No, are you doing that one? So Jeffrey will be doing customized UI customized CloudStack, sorry, not custom, in Loughlin 2, which is next door. And I should add the thanks of obviously myself and our CloudStack conference delegates to the Apache Foundation for getting this going, for the ApacheCon planners group who worked out all the logistics, obviously the Cloudstack Collaboration Conference planners who worked out who was going to be talking in which room, what made sense, what order, and all of that. To Maurice and BT for their quotes, to Jeffrey and LeaseWeb for coming, speaking, and telling us about what they're up to Jean-François and Ticketmaster as well, and obviously Anthony and Apple for speaking here. And I've got one little prop here to say, I also have to say to you guys, thank you very much.